Hi Joe. My name is Bill Barrell. I'm a dealer in the stamps and postal history of Great Britain from England, but I'm also an exhibitor, and I'd like to take you quickly through my 8-frame exhibit at Uruguay 2025 World Stamp Exhibition, which got its second large gold medal. The story of the exhibit is Great Britain, postal reform and development of the penny value. Now, I started life as a collector of the much later penny reds, the perforated issues. Over the years, I acquired a few earlier items, and I then sought to try and fill the gaps of a very large story, which starts with the Napoleonic Wars in circa 1800, where the Inland Revenue, who were responsible for stamp development and printing at this time in England, cream off 25%, as a quarter, 25% of all postal revenue to pay towards the national debt for the costs incurred with the wars in France. Because of that loss of revenue, postal rises occur very, very frequently, and by the mid-1830s, we have a postal service that is, 1, very expensive, 2, very inefficient, and quite frankly, is not fit for purpose. So my exhibit will look at the causes of the postal inflation, the items that were used to pressurise the British government to reform the system, and then those key reforms and what happened subsequently. So the two key players are Rowland Hill and Robert Wallace, who between them put pressure on the British government of the Post Office, the Inland Revenue, for postal reform. And here we have a selection of documents, rare original documents that are suggesting methods of postal reform. These items here are quite remarkable. These were funded by a committee called the Mercantile Committee, set up in 1838 to in part fund postal reform. And what is incredible is this enormous letter here, which is a single sheet, was posted at a single rate, whereas this small little envelope here, which had an enclosure, was posted at the double rate. Clearly a ludicrous situation. So we have a lot of pressure for postal reform, and that postal reform takes 3 stages. Okay? The first stage is the reduction or the introduction of a Uniform Fourpenny Post. That occurs on the 5th of December 1839, when the single rate of inland postage on all general post letters transmitted between places in the United Kingdom will be the uniform rate of 4p. That is an incredibly important development, an incredibly important postal reform, and this is the unique postal notice in this style that introduces that and sets out the entire concept of postal reform. Quite a remarkable document. So on the 5th of December, we have the Uniform Fourpenny Post introduced. Here is an incredibly rare first day cover, December the 5th, 1839, with a hand stamp. Many offices did not have the hand stamp for ready for use by the 5th of December. This is one of only perhaps 10 examples that exist, and it's one of the very finest. So the Uniform Fourpenny Post lasted until the 9th of January. This is an example of the 9th of January 1840, last day of the Uniform Fourpenny Post, because on the 10th of January we see the second and probably the most important stage of postal reform, when they reduced the fourpenny rate to the penny rate. On or after the 10th of January, a letter not exceeding half an ounce in weight may be sent for 1 penny. This almost gave the general population the chance to send mail. Major date in world history, actually. So that usage is shown here with a first day cover on the 10th of January, where a penny is paid. This one is also the 10th of January, first day, sent unpaid, so charged double. So we've got the first stage of postal reform, the second stage of postal reform, and then the third stage of postal reform. And in many senses, the least important was the introduction of a label to receipt the postage paid service. Now, where did that label come from? Well, there was in 1839 there had been what we call a Treasury competition essay, where men of letters had been asked to submit ideas. Original essays are very rare. Here we see a very rare essay by James Bagardus. It's a hand-drawn essay. There's only 2 blocks of 4 known. This was actually in Beresford's collection and Pinchai Burnham Sambatti's Grand Prix collection. This is another essay here by Charles Whiting. These were his proposals for the label, which we now refer to as a stamp. This is another proposal by Robert Sivier. But neither of those were successful, so it was really left down to Roland Hill once again to come up with the design, and he came up with the design of the penny black, which is the next stage of the exhibit, which fills page 3, a frame 3 of 8. Here we have a very rare postal notice saying, "Postmasters, this is what you do. This is the label we're going to introduce. This is how you use it." What I would point out, Joe, is that this is the first time I have ever seen an exhibit that contains the 3 key postal notices: Uniform Fourpenny, Uniform Penny, and the penny black. This is an amazing item. It's a penny black used on the 6th of May, first day of issue. Fantastic piece. It's very nice. What I particularly like about it is it's used in London, but what I particularly like is the fact that if you look at it, and this is something to bear in mind when you're buying covers, the ink is all very similar in colour. So we know we know that is genuine, because that colour there is the same as the date stamp, is the same as the TP Cornhill local receivers hand stamp. This one has a good pedigree, always good to get pedigree. This is ex-Sugden, where it was sold in 1951 for £77, 10 shillings. And then in 1963, it fetched the grand sum of £130. So we have the penny black issued. I then move on showing a very nice mint block, superb multiples. This is an interesting piece. If we look at these 2 blocks of 4 here, right, this is plate 3, this is plate 4. This is by far the most attractive piece. The colour is stronger, the Maltese crosses are brighter, but this one is much rarer, because multiples from plate 3 are very difficult to find, whereas most multiples from plate 4 tend to be attractive, brighter colours, nicer cancellations for some reason. So that was a very recent acquisition. I'm delighted to have it. We have a very interesting item cover here, which shows the world's first 2 postage stamps on the same letter. What's happened is it's been sent from London to Saxe-Mundham with a Topney blue, presumably paying the double rate, and it would have enclosed some legal papers because it's addressed to solicitors. The envelope was then reused and sent back to London, but without the contents, so they used the single rate. Nice item. Plate 10, plate 11. Now, was the penny black a success? Well, of course it was a success, but as early as 8th of May, the Inland Revenue found fraudulent reuse of the stamps, where where members of the general public removed the red Maltese cross and reuse the stamp. So if we look at these 5 covers here, these are incredibly rare examples of reused stamps. Old stamp, so it's been surcharged, used before, been surcharged, stamp used before, surcharged, etc. These are incredibly difficult to find. I would think there's probably 20 genuine examples known. Full stop. So what did the Inland Revenue do? Well, what they did, they held a series of colour trials called the Rainbow Trials, which we see on these next pages. Now, these Rainbow Trials were conducted as early as June to August 1840 in a whole series of colours to find a replacement colour for the penny value. They selected the penny red, and this is the postal notice which shows Postmasters, we've got another change. From February the 10th, 1841, the penny value is going to be in red and the cancellation is going to be in black. Big change. Okay, we then move on to various penny reds, including a very interesting, not a particularly expensive frame, but a very interesting selection of penny reds showing the chemical reaction that occurred occasionally during the printing process due to impurities in the bleaches of the rags, precipitated potash within the inking composition, and to which was added the moistening of the paper when the paper was eased into the recesses. And that causes a very inconsistent bluing. Okay, this is something I'd like to draw your attention to. If we focus on this stamp here, you can see that the lower right corner letter is missing. All right, it's the world's first major printing error, and what has happened is that when they've made the plate, when they have made the plate, the design is complete except no check letters are in the letter squares. Okay, on this plate, on the stamp lettered BA, they omitted to put the check letter A in, didn't spot it. It was only spotted subsequently, and since that date, 28 examples have been found, and that is the finest example recorded, and it's the only one known used in Ireland. It's an incredible thing, yeah. So that's called the B blank A error. Nice mint blocks with plate number in the corners. These plate numbers, this marginal inscription and the plate number was usually trimmed off and thrown away. So these are very nice pieces. Attempts at perforation, because all of these stamps hitherto have been cut from the sheets by scissors, which is time consuming and disfigures the stamps. So various personages in the late 1840s, early 1850s tried to roulette the stamps. This is the most celebrated one, called the Treasury Roulette. This is a unique cover which shows the Treasury Roulette. You can see the wavy cuts. That's the Treasury Roulette, and a single imperforate stamp. Incredible combination, unique. I knew about that cover about 50 years ago. Never thought I'd ever own it. So what happens is that an Irishman by the name of Henry Archer, he comes along and he applies the concept of perforation to stamps. The concept of perforation was not a new one. It had been used on postal fiscals beforehand. He applies it to postage stamps. It's a success, and the Inland Revenue buy his patent. So we then get the introduction of perforation here. Mint copies, used copies, corner copies again, big blocks. And as we progress through the exhibit, bit of a dark corner here. I don't know why they put such a good exhibit in a dark corner, but that's life. And we get a recutting of the original die in 1855. Very nice colour trials. This is a very interesting block here, which is used on mail from the Crimean War. During the Crimean War, 1854 to 1856, the British Post Office was based in Constantinople, and it had two distinctive cancellations to apply to mail. This is one of the cancellations. It's called OXO, OX. It's asterisk really, but we call it the OXO cancellation. That is undoubtedly the largest known piece, and it took me 3 attempts in auction to buy it, but I got it in the end. Big mint blocks, errors imperforate, shame we can't see them really. Moving on, we've got a nice selection of imprimaturs. Now, the imprimatur, which is Latin for let it be printed, was the very first sheet taken after a plate had been completely laid down, and it was a proof sheet taken to make sure it was okay for printing. And fortunately, at the end of the 19th century, various royal personages, earls, lords, cut about 20 examples at various times from the sheets, and they've filtered into collections. That's imprimaturs, the very rare C7 printing, rare plates, proof in black, taken for an exhibition at the South Kensington Museum in 1872. Late use of the Maltese cross. This is interesting. All of the early penny imperfs were cancelled with the Maltese cross. And in 1844, the Maltese cross we see here was replaced by numeral cancellations, such as this 47 here, which happened to be used in London. Very occasionally, after the Maltese cross was withdrawn in 1844, you see very late usage. This is a use of a Maltese cross 11 years later. Very, very nice item. Penny star used on a Mulready. Very attractive. I love this correspondence here. Graham Jeeves and Co. going to Mexico. Big correspondence, but very attractive covers. Because, Joe, this is a visual hobby, and if it looks good, it generally is good, And I try to find as many interesting and colourful items as I can. And I love these covers here. You've got red and green, carmine and red, green, red and blue, green, blue and red going to Australia. Lovely covers. This is interesting. This is a group of covers paying the shilling rate to America. Shilling rate, 6 on the front, 6 on the back, 12 on the front, 12 on the back, 12 on the front on 3 sides. It's fun, isn't it? It just shows different things, different aspects. And the last frame, when we're approaching the end of the story, shows various large blocks. All or most of them are from a very famous collection called Chartwell Collection. Chartwell was the pseudonym of a major British collector who put together a stunning collection, and it was sold 2000, I think it was sold in 2000, and because a lot of the stamps were stored in a safe for the whole duration of his life, the colours are absolutely superb. As we reach the end of the story, there's some what we call old original die proofs, which I've conducted original research on, which is and if you look carefully, you can see corrosion spots where the die has been put aside, it started to rust, and the bigger the corrosion mark, the later the printing. That's original research. This is a remarkable item here, because as we approach the last great development, which was the change of the design from check letters in the lower squares to stars, with stars in the upper squares, to check letters in the lower squares and check letters in the upper squares. We find a postal fraud, which is why they changed the design. This is the only one I've really seen that is very convincing, where someone has taken 2 unused portions of 2 uncancelled stamps, stuck them back together to create in theory, a new stamp, got away with it. But they made one big error. Because when they stuck the 2 halves together, if you have a look at how he spelt penny, he's got 2 E's. He's got he's got two E's from two parts of two different stamps. Brilliant item, absolutely fantastic. That was one of the reasons why they changed the design to the letters in all four corners. And end of story is now approaching with amazing items from that new design. At the time, Perkins Bacon are trying in 1878 to keep the contract. They lose the contract to De La Rue because De La Rue were able to print more stamps in more colours in single and doubly fugitive inks. And in 1880, De La Rue win the contract. And it's goodbye Perkins Bacon. It's goodbye to the penny black. Goodbye to the wonderful imperforate penny red. But it's not quite the end. It's not quite the end because after all these stamps had been designed, printed, used, cancelled, discarded, some people then collected them. Some people then collected them for a most attractive circa 1890 collage. Now, this is quite a controversial item. People either love it because it rounds off the story. If you look at a lot of exhibits, they don't really have a conclusion. This concludes the story, and that's why I include it. But there's other people who say, well, you shouldn't put that in, Bill, but I love it. So that's a brief guide through the exhibit, Joe. What I would say is, if people are interested, this is a book I've got which I produced when I displayed this exhibit to the Royal Philatelic Society, London, no less, in December 2024. I've got a few copies left, £35 plus postage. It is superb and includes this quite remarkable fold-out of the postal notice. There we are. End of story. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Bill.
That's a pleasure. Bye-bye.